So, I decided to take a second round at the closed beta of Street Fighter 6. Let me tell you what I did. The first time around, I decided to jump in quick and pick a character that I love the design and outlook of the whole moveset for, which was Jamie. If you want to see that information, check out the video. I uploaded it already and you can see it on the channel. It should be right here on the screen. But yeah, I chose Jamie. I wanted to learn everything about him. But I knew this was a closed beta, so I decided to get in as fast as I could and do as much as I could with what I had. And with that footage, I used the modern controls, which is like an abbreviated, simpler form of Street Fighter 6, where you won't have to learn how to do all the executions and movements to do the moves, which is great for new players. And I highly recommend it if you want to learn how to play Street Fighter, or you just want to have some fun with some friends, or if you're skilled at the game but you want to play with a friend and they haven't practiced as long as you have. This is the perfect way to bridge the gap between the two of you. So that's my recommendation. Try out the modern controls. If you want to learn a new character or just get a feel for how it's played, go for it. Now, this time around though, my mission was to learn the classic controls and see if I can get good at playing Jamie. I wanted to be an actual Street Fighter. I wanted to be a good player. I wanted to get good. And I think I got decent. I'm not exactly good yet, but let me tell you about my journey. So anyway, first things first, I just jumped right into ranked matches to see exactly where I was placed skill-wise after getting acclimated to the controls. First things first, I fought a Ken player and he bodied me, no question. And he immediately left after, because that's usually the way you do it in ranked. You play one game, you win, and then you leave that opponent. You don't do any rematches. So that way people want, as they say, download you or learn your tricks. So don't expect any runbacks in ranked unless somebody is really cocky. Now, the thing about playing against a Ken player as Jamie is Ken puts out an absurd amount of damage. Ken and Ryu, they both do a crazy amount of damage and they have great combos with it. Ryu doesn't need big combos. He just does big damage with a little bit, with small amount of hits. I don't get it. So anyway, the craziest thing to me is once I got acclimated to fighting as Jamie with these new controls, it was like I was playing an entirely new game, but it felt more natural. And I was used to it because I played Street Fighter games in the past, from Street Fighter 2 to Third Strike, etc. But now I'm over here having struggles doing the moves that I'm expecting to come out of me, and they're not happening. So let me show you what I mean. One of my go-to bread and butter moves is a down heavy kick that goes into a 3-hit combo. And afterwards he gets to take a sip. Now, of course, if you want to know about the sip mechanic and the drunken fish style of Jamie and how he operates, of course it just takes 4 sips to get into his state that allows him to use more moves out of his moveset. If you want to know more detail about it, you can go and look at my video that I've already uploaded called Street Fighter 6 Impressions, and let me know what you think. It's all about Jamie and the other impressions of the first impressions of the game. Now, back to this. Jamie has a great low sweep that he can combo into more hits, decent damage, and he can take a sip from his swig, from his flask. A sip from his swig, from his flask. Boy, I do not know how to words. So, one thing that you want to be careful about when fighting against a Jamie is that if a good Jamie is in front of you, they're gonna mix it up every chance they get, and it's always gonna be something new, something new, something new. You won't be able to predict them, and that's kind of how I try to play Jamie. I try my best to make sure that I can win, basically. And the best way to do that is to keep yourself from being predicted. Even if I do something that they would expect, they still would be wrong, because I'm gonna do the very thing that you wouldn't expect. The best way to trick people in fighting games is to do something that looks like you're gonna attack. Make it seem like you're on the offensive. Make it seem like you're gonna do something bad or something evil or something trickery. And just don't. Just be straightforward and do something good, actually. And they won't expect it. Like, I would go in and do some type of move, and if it gets blocked, I just back up and block. And they don't expect it, and they get conditioned that way. So that way, once they think that you're not going to follow up after the first block, they're going to open themselves up. But then I can just attack right after getting the first block. It's all a mind game fighting games, and it's so good. It's very, 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 very fun. Now, the thing about it is, you have to make sure that Jamie does not get his sips in. Remember, it takes 4 sips for them to unleash the demon, and those 4 sips before he gets completely drunk is the best time to take him down, or else he'll have more moves to use against you and he can do more damage with certain moves. You have to make sure. He has a palm strike that not only has ridiculous range, but also it can be comboed, and it's a guaranteed second hit if it lands the first one. So and he only has access to that once he gets completely drunk after 4 sips. You need to make sure he does not have access to those things. After about 2 sips, he can do a dive kick that lets him combo directly into it. And at the end of that combo, he can take another sip for free and you won't be able to stop him. He is a menace. You have to pressure him. And the main time, anytime I lost in these sessions that you see on screen, is because they were aggressive the entire time, but they were smart in their aggression and they mixed it up, so they knew how to fight a Jamie player. Now, I did fight a Juri player that was so good, but the main thing about Juri that I've gathered, just to be real with you, she's overpowered, okay? She does too much damage, her wake-ups are too powerful, and she's able to do way too much to you. Another thing is, you can easily abuse Drive Impact if you don't know how to actually play the game. But those who get into this game, remember, Drive Impact is not overpowered and you can counter it with a grab. You just have to be ready to do the grab. And if you cannot get a grab out and you have a character that have very fast multi-hit attacks, it takes 3 hits to land to break a Drive Impact. But those 3 hits have to land before the active frame of the Drive Impact. So it has to be done on the startup. You need to make sure you get in there before the hit lands on the Drive Impact. And you just might make it. You just might win. Anywho's, the thing about the grabs in this game that's different from any other Street Fighter is that the grabs have more utility. You can use it offensively, defensively, and in a counter situation. So grab moves can not only counter blue shift, but it can also counter Drive Impacts. And it's a great way to mix things up, because if anybody is way too good on their defense, just give them a good old grab that won't be ready for it. It works every time. So it's all about how you flow chart your moves, your offenses, and if you can do the rock, paper, scissors game of high-low grab, then you just might get it. You know what I mean? So next, I just want to talk about Luke for a second. All right, Luke is a weird something. You understand me? And y'all know what I mean when I say something. Luke, for some reason, is just like Ryu and Ken, but slightly different. And the two things that make him so different is his projectiles travel way faster, but they do less damage, and they multi-hit. Now, Kimberly, she's another story here. Kimberly, she has this one move that branches into like 3 different actions. And that one move is her dash toward you, and it can go into 3 different abilities. But the thing about that is, she can either start with the dash toward you, or she can start with a slide. And those 2 moves turn into many different things. All you have to do is look and recognize which one she's doing and block it. But you're not safe just because you blocked the first one. She can still follow up, so you have to make sure that none of it works. It sounds difficult, but I'm sure you can do it, because I did. Now, there was a time I had a chance to fight a Chun-Li, and she's ridiculously good. I'll show you right here in the clip, as a matter of fact. Chun-Li was so ridiculously good, I had no chance. She was clearly controlled by someone who came from Street Fighter 4, maybe 5. But her footsies and fundamentals made it almost impossible to beat her. It was ridiculous. So take of that what you will. Now, the final thing about my journey to getting good is, of course, I had to get into the lab. Now, in the lab, what we call the training room, the lab, I made sure that I learned every move that was available to me from Jamie's arsenal, which I've explained, and also the frame data. which they show you right there. You either have to turn it on or it's going to be displayed by default. I'm not sure if I turned it on myself, honestly. But looking at the bar and how intuitive it is, it's so great. All it takes is to learn when you're vulnerable on startup and when you're vulnerable on recovery, and knowing when your hits will hit. Usually you can feel that out. Most people, there's a lot of people out there who do not learn frame data and they just feel it out. You can just feel the number of frames, and that is a real thing. You know when your punch is unsafe, you know when it's not, you know when it's gonna land, etc., just from repeatedly doing it. But it's also very advantageous to know which moves you have the lowest startup frames or the lowest recovery frames. That means that if you have a punch that's 4 frames startup, then that means you're only vulnerable for 4 frames when compared to a kick that's like 7 or 12. You have a better chance at getting the first hit because there's not much of a startup. But the balance of fighting games is usually that the more frames on startup usually means the more damage or utility from the move once it lands. But this is something to explain in another video, maybe in the future. I'm not that deep into fighting games, but I know more than most, so I guess one day we'll teach you all. And last thing I'll leave you with is a mirror match with Jamie and Jamie and what to do in that situation. Now, to give him credit, fighting a mirror Jamie, it's just a race to the 4th sip, okay? And the worst thing about that is, if you get your moveset, you're not that safe once you get all 4 sips, because he knows what you're capable of and you know what he's capable of. So you still have a fight on your hands. It's not just, open shut at that moment. But you do what you can to try. That's all you got to do. But I want to thank you for making it this far into the video. I want to thank everybody who will take this advice and try their best to become the best Street Fighter that they can. I personally started seeing results very quickly, and the last thing I need to work on is just working it into the strategy and making most of those moves a muscle memory. Say that 5 times fast. Anyway, thank y'all. Much appreciated. Y'all have a nice day. Take care and peace. Bro, what do you mean? Lord, why you gotta do so much damage? It took me 5 combos to do what you just did.